What did we learn from George Mason's open practice? What did head coach Vanessa Blair-Lewis and players have to say about the upcoming season? Atlantic 10 beat reporter Natalie Heavren talks all things Mason. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are Locked On Women's Basketball, and I am Natalie Heavren, and I'm a features writer and the Atlantic 10 beat reporter for The Next. Thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. And remember, Locked On Women's Basketball is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. On today's show, I'm going to discuss George Mason's open practice, where the team wants to go, and recap where the program has been. Hello and happy Thursday, or as I like to call it, Friday Eve. Earlier this month, I attended George Mason's open practice. It's the second year in a row the program has hosted one, and I was able to get an early look at this season's team. Starting off, walked in, sat down. As it all got started, the team, yelled Ubuntu in the huddle before officially starting the open practice, which was something they did last year. Now, for those of you that don't know what Ubuntu means, it means it kind of encapsulates compassion and humanity and family as well. So after that, Vanessa Blair-Lewis, who is in her second year as the head coach at George Mason, mentioned that while there were new faces on the team, 7 of them, in fact, the mission hadn't changed and the team is still believing big. Last year, Vanessa Blair-Lewis kind of encapsulated what believing big meant was by saying, I think there's a picture behind the scenes as well. It's that they believe that they can win any game, not just some games, but any game. And as a coach, you'll see that start to happen as the season starts, the confidence. So for us, it's the belief that we can win and believing that we can win big. So believing big has been the mantra for the team since the start of the Vanessa Blair-Lewis or VBL era in Fairfax. And much like last year's open practice, there was clapping during drills and constant encouragement. And despite this being put on in front of season ticket holders, recruits, their families, and the media, coaches were giving criticism and encouragement and even a hug or two. So you really felt like you were in an actual practice. And after the open practice, Blair-Lewis mentioned that she wanted to see the team become better than it was last year on the defensive end. And here's what she said specifically.
Also, I just want to see us defensively become better. I'm a defensive coach, and, last year I think that we gave up a lot of points, something that we're not really used to as a coaching staff. So getting the buy-in for defense is going to be really important to this team.
And last season, Mason allowed the second most points allowed by an A10 team over the course of the season, allowed opposing teams to make 41% of its field goals, 31.3% of its threes, and its opponents grabbed almost 40 rebounds per game. And defense was clearly a priority for the team during the open practice. One of the drills that I found the most interesting and I think really shows how much they were invested in defense was, it's called defense on a string, and they used it where 3 players were linked together and it forced the trio to move at the same time and work together. And it really emphasized the team's push for both defense and something that the team started last year was really an increase in communication. And in that drill, as one player moves, the other 2 feel a tug because they're kind of all wrapped around at the waist. And so the other 2 feel a tug to move to the right position as well. And one player that looks to be a defensive presence for the team is Trey Kennedy, a transfer from Marist.
Hopefully I'm trying to get into it defensively and be a defensive player for this team. It's what I got recruited for, so I'm trying to do that to the best of my ability. And hopefully the offense will come and I'll be able to contribute across the board.
And Kennedy is one of several new faces Mason added to its roster this season, and they averaged 10.6 points and 4.3 rebounds at Marist last season, which was second on the team in both scoring and rebounding. They were also named to the All-MAC third team and All-Academic team for the 2020-21 season. Blair-Lewis also told me about her early impressions of the newcomers and what she hopes they will all be able to contribute this season.
Oh, man, I love them all. I just think that they all have something dynamic to bring, being handpicked to be a part of this team and the culture we're trying to build here. I just think that they all are going to be able to play their roles and be able to be a part of this program and what we're building here. And they're all excited about it. It's a really great family atmosphere. They're there for each other. Practices are really hard work. But they stay together. The meshing is really happening. Over the summer, it was just really good for us to be in the same space and learn a lot about each other on and off the court.
Another transfer that Blair-Lewis talked about and who really made her presence known during the open practice was Sonia Smith. She led Sacred Heart with 13 points, 4.2 assists, and 1.8 steals per game last season, and was selected to the All-NEC third team. And she's looking forward to contribute on both sides of the ball as well as lead the team on the court as a point guard. Both Smith and Kennedy have loved the family atmosphere at Mason that they've experienced so far, so let's take a listen to what they had to say.
Just the family feel. We really feel as one on and off the court. We have a good gel, we stick together well. And it just, everybody cares for each other. Like we all have each other's backs, and we know that.
Same as Sonia. I'm really happy about the family feel. That's the best part about being here is everybody, tries to love each other, tries to give each other the best. And I think that's really important when you're trying to build a championship team. So that's the best part about being at Mason.
And at the open practice, something that really stood out to me was the continued development of Taylor Jameson's leadership. She started out at Mason during the COVID year, the 2020-21 season, and she really had a huge jump from her freshman season to her sophomore season. Last season was her first year, obviously, under head coach Vanessa Blair-Lewis, and she was able to increase her output of both scoring, rebounding, as well as assists per game in more of an increased role, and she started all but 3 games last season for the Patriots. She was able to average 9.8 points per game, 2.9 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 steal per game. And after the open practice, she talked about her leadership and what she hopes to accomplish this season.
I hope to just lead everyone in the aspect of hard work ethic, just making sure to help everyone and on and off the court and things they need, like running plays or even just being there for the younger ones off the court mentally, because basketball is a mental sport. I look forward to helping lead on and off the court this year, though, and taking over in every aspect needed of me.
I also chatted with senior Tamia Lawhorne, who had a hot start as a freshman back in the 2019-2020 season, but had been inconsistent and a little streaky all the way even through last season. But she was able to make a huge impact in the games where she was able to knock down her shots, averaging 9 points, 3.4 and 3.4 rebounds per game last season. And she was the most efficient shooting threes, making 35.2% of her three-point attempts, leading the team. And that was also good enough for 13th in the conference. This season, she hopes to be more consistent as well as contribute on both sides of the ball. And really being a leader on the court. Coming up next, I'll talk about what the rest of the roster looks like and what the schedule holds for Mason this season, as well as more about what Vanessa Blair-Lewis hopes to see this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your betting needs, and yes, even your women's basketball betting needs. I am not personally someone who bets on sports, but I love that BetOnline.net offers these options for WNBA, women's college basketball, and now even the World Cup. So throughout the WNBA season and WNBA playoffs, BetOnline has made it easy to place a bet with just a couple of clicks, and you can do that right now with the World Cup and in less than 6 weeks for college basketball as well. From women's basketball to the MLB, NFL, NBA, and NHL, BetOnline has got you covered for odds, lines, and games. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. So far, I've introduced you to 4 of Mason's players, but there were 3 others that stood out to me at the open practice as well. Jada Brown is a walk-on in her first season, and her defense really impressed me at the open practice. I've covered the team for a long time. This will be my 6th season covering the team, and I don't believe that I've seen a walk-on really make an impact on the court, so I'm excited to see what she brings to this team and what this season holds for her. And then Jasmine Doster is a senior who averaged 5.6 points and 6.4 rebounds last season, and she operated at the open practice with more confidence than ever. Last year, she struggled with fouling. She fouled out of 2 games and then had 4 fouls in 10 more games. So I'm excited to see if that confidence translates to a little bit more control in terms of fouling, and what that means for her both scoring and rebounding next season, or this upcoming season. It's almost here, less than 6 weeks away. And then Nalani Kaisha comes to Mason as an untraditional transfer. She played 3 seasons of collegiate volleyball at Charlotte and had 174 kills, 13 aces, and 11 assists last season. Prior to college, she was a 3-sport athlete at Sidwell Friends School, where she totaled more than 1,000 points and 1,300 rebounds over the course of her high school basketball career. So I'm really excited to see what she's able to bring to the team this season. And at the open practice, it looked like she hadn't taken any time off of basketball at all. It'll certainly be interesting to see what she's able to do on the court. And I'm really excited to cover a college volleyball player turned basketball player. And in its non-conference slate, Mason will take on 3 Power 5 opponents, including opening their season at home against Maryland. And then on November 12th, they take on the University of Pittsburgh. And then as a part of the Goombay Splash, they'll be playing LSU on November 24th. The Patriots also take on a slew of regional opponents in Loyola University, Maryland on November 19th, William & Mary on November 21st, American University on December 3rd, and Coppin State on December 17th. So I asked Blair-Lewis about the non-conference schedule and what opening the season against Maryland means for the program after open practice, especially after the team hosted Florida and defeated Florida last season.
I just think that, being able to have Maryland come across the bridge and come into our home, Brenda is, we've been really good friends for a while, and she's just, open to go play wherever. And I think that that's going to be good for our girls, to be able to get us ready for our conference by having a strong non-conference. Going to the Bahamas this year will be fun, opening up with LSU, having that stiff competition. And then around the Beltway, still having the Loyolas and those type of games to be able to just get our team ready. And I think that the non-conference is going to do more than just that.
And you mentioned Maryland, but last year you also mentioned wanting to continue to have Power 5 schools come into Eagle Bank. So specifically, what does starting the season at home against Maryland mean for the program?
I think it's just what we wanted to do. Wanted to be able to have a great brand of basketball here in Fairfax backyard, that they can come and just see really good and high-level basketball played really well with women.
I also spoke with Trey Kennedy and Tamia Lawhorne, who are both really excited for this non-conference schedule as well, particularly to take on the Power 5 opponents. It's always really fun to ask players what they're excited about on the schedule.
Same as Sonia, the Power 5 teams, exactly what Sonia said. People are going to think that these Power 5 teams are going to come in and, we play Maryland at home. These are big teams and that they're just going to power through us. But I think we're going to give them a run for their money and we're going to compete as hard as they do. And at the time, it's level 0-0. So hopefully, we get out there and we play with our hearts.
Definitely the bigger teams. I feel like everybody's going to say that. But the bigger teams are definitely, you get more excited seeing those teams on your schedule. Like Sonia and Trey said before, people are going to say to those teams oh, you're playing George Mason, that's an easy game, but we got a different team this year. We got different mindsets. We got different players. We got players that got heart. we're going to play no matter who's in front of us. We're going to play our hearts out. We're going to play like it's our last game ever. So I think that playing those bigger teams is going to really put us on the map and let people know that we're not here to just play around. We're here to stay. So I think the mindset is just playing hard, playing as hard as possible, no matter who we play. Like Taylor just said, no matter who's on the schedule, we got to play hard. Like it doesn't matter if they're good, it doesn't matter if they're bad, they're high level, low level. They're gonna play as hard as they can. So we got to match that energy or exceed it, because nobody's gonna let us just win a game. So we got to keep playing hard, and the coaches have put emphasis on that too. Like every time we step on the court, we got to play like it's the last game we'll ever play in our lives, and that's how we play. I feel like this year is definitely how our mindset has changed and how it's going to maintain throughout the year. So.
And then I know conference season is quite a ways away, but one A10 game I wanted to mention takes place on Monday, January 16th, when George Washington is visiting Mason as a part of a CBS Sports Network triple header on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The broadcast will feature wraparound programming put together by the Atlantic 10 Commission on Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And it will be the latest edition of the Revolutionary Rivalry. And it's featuring the matchup of two second-year head coaches, obviously Vanessa Blair-Lewis for Mason, but also Caroline McCombs for GW. And the pair split the series last season. GW returns 4 of its top 6 scorers from last season, and Mason returns 3 of its top 5 scorers. And obviously both are welcoming several new faces as well, looking to make an impact. And then transfers Sonia Smith and Trey Kennedy are also excited to join the A10. Here's what they had to say about joining the A10.
Oh, well, I'm most excited about the better competition. I feel like this conference is very good, but I'm also excited to help George Mason climb the ranks because, with their history, they've done better this year, so it's just going to go up from here as well.
I'm just really excited to be a part of that building era where we're trying to get to the top like everybody else. And the A10 is very competitive. There are a lot of great teams in there, a lot of great players. So I'm just hoping to be able to compete and just take it from there.
And then check out more of my interview with Blair-Lewis, what she has to say about the newcomers and some other things that just excite her.
What are some of the ways you're hoping your team grows this season?
I think, with so many new players in addition to this team this year, just meshing together offensively is going to be important. Us, being able to know each other and know our strengths and weaknesses, and that's really what we want to get better at in the preseason, just kind of getting to know each other.
And you mentioned a lot of new faces. Who are you expecting to step up or for returning players continue to shine this season?
Yeah, I think Taylor is going to be a really big part of what we do this year. Jazz has an amazing upside. It's just been really good to be able to work with her for a year. Her presence down there in the post. Tamia, Lawhorne, just working on her shot all this summer and being able to do things off the ball is going to be huge. She's a terrific shooter. With the addition of players like Sonia coming in and as a point guard is going to be great. Paula, I think 1 year from not being a freshman anymore is going to be huge for her. She just looked really good this summer, being such a big point guard for us. I also think Trey is going to do well for us being on the wing, being able to provide some inside-outside punch. And Janiyah, staying healthy with Janiyah down there, being able to get her mid-range shot off and being able to be a big defensive and rebounding presence for us.
And then the A10 announced that women's basketball is moving to an 18-game season for the 2023-2024 season. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it makes the non-conference slate, scheduling a little easier. It's really hard now sometimes getting those games because the other conferences are expanding, so there are not a lot of games available. But I think it's good. The A10 has a great brand of basketball, so every single night it's good competition. So the more the merrier. I will enjoy it.
After the open practice, Blair-Lewis said that Mason wants to be in the top half of the conference and that she believes the team and the roster, and then she knocked on wood, literally, as long as they remain healthy, they'll be able to do that. And Mason hasn't finished in the top half of the conference since the 2017-2018 season when it finished 4th. It's finished 8th, 13th, 14th, and 14th in the last 4 seasons. So I will leave you with 2 quotes from Vanessa Blair-Lewis on what excites her about the upcoming season and what she wants everyone else to know about the team this season.
What excites you about this upcoming season?
Being home, like I said, last year was phenomenal, being home and coming back home, but, being in the DMV and being able to attract DMV kids to stay home, getting a lot of them on our roster as well. But just being better than what we were last year is what the coaching staff and the players want to do. We want to just take that next step for us, being better contenders in the conference and being able to be formidable in the non-conference.
And what is one thing you want people to know about your team this season?
That we're going to be tough. We're going to be defensive-minded. We're going to be tough. And we're going to be exciting to watch.
Thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. Join me tomorrow when I chat with Missy Heidrich more about college basketball and some games you'll definitely want to put on your calendar. Now for your second listen, Locked On Fantasy Basketball with Josh Lloyd is the #1 daily fantasy basketball show on the planet. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts.